that, you should see something pop up that might request your approval to continue. My name is Jonathan Overly. I'm the director of East Tennessee Clean Fuels Coalition and the administrator for Drive Electric Tennessee. And Ainsley Kelso and I will be managing this webinar for you today. Ainsley is the communications coordinator for both East Tennessee Clean Fuels and Drive Electric Tennessee. And see if you can get that next slide to go away, Ainsley, if possible. And I'll start providing a little overview information while you do that. And if you'll go back one, Ainsley, sorry. So this event came about thanks to a 3-state partnership with Alabama and Georgia. So we're really pleased because there is a Drive Electric Georgia and a Drive Electric Alabama initiative. I think it's DriveElectricGeorgia.org and DriveElectricAlabama.com. But if you go look at their websites, you'll see similar efforts are coming to fruition. So we are not alone in terms of trying to formulate a group in each state and develop partnerships to help people understand how these things work and talk about exactly what we want to talk about today. And that is just provide you guys some stories from individual EV drivers about their EVs, how they use them, what they like about them, how they charge them, etc. And the next slide, Ainsley, talks about our DET members. Essentially, as we try to make if you will, a small business like Drive Electric Tennessee work, then there are a lot of people that are involved. There are grants that come in and we work with partners that provide some funding, but there's also members. So all of these folks are members and partners with us. So we really appreciate their time and attention to being involved in different groups, whether it's a Drive Electric Tennessee working group like awareness or infrastructure, whether it's some of the utility and local power company calls we have or other project work. So thank you to all of our members and partners. And I think the last slide that I'm going to say anything on is next, Ainsley. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
And so for our 4 featured EV drivers today, they know most of this stuff, but for the rest of you folks, and you may as well, but why would you want to drive an electric car? So what you see here is you're going to go to a number that could easily be 90 to 100 to possibly 140 to 150 miles per gallon equivalent. And that's one of the reasons you have cost savings associated with moving from gasoline to electric. We reduce emissions. Some of the most recent analyses we've done using a national tool that Argonne National Lab developed called A-Fleet is showing numbers from 60 to over 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. If you drive a gasoline car in Tennessee based on the TVA grid, and you switch to an electric vehicle today and drive that vehicle the same, you're probably looking at a 70+% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. That's because TVA has roughly a 60% greenhouse gas free electricity production in the TVA multi-state footprint. So at least on the greenhouse gas side, you're talking numbers on the order of 70% for your reductions from switching from a gas car to an electric. You're going from 2,000 to a much smaller number, like removing 2 zeros in terms of moving parts in these cars. It's reduced maintenance. I think most people know that in a car dealership, they really make their money over in sales and service because internal combustion engine vehicles need such service over the long haul. So you're going to pay reduced maintenance. Overall, you're generally paying a half to a third, depending on what the price of gasoline is, in terms of fuel costs over the life. There's been recent maintenance analysis that have been done that are talking about numbers like 60. You'll save about 40% of your costs in an electric vehicle versus the cost you would have had with an internal combustion engine. For individuals, that number may be a little bit less or a little bit more, depending on how you drive either your ICE or your electric vehicle. Obviously, most of us charge at home. There are going to be places as EVs come more into society where apartment complexes on the street, there's a number of places where we collectively need to work to make charging more available and easier for folks that might not have a single family home or an option at a multifamily dwelling. But right now, a lot of people that are getting them charged at home. So it makes it easy. Workplace charging, there's going to be a huge initiative started this year on workplace charging, which you will hear more about through our communication channels like the DET um, newsletter, email newsletter. And then there's public locations. And a lot of our folks can talk about their stories charging at home as well as in public locations. And last but not least, it's fun to drive. I'm not sure, for me personally, I could put any of the rest of these things above just how fun it is to drive an electric vehicle. So you'll be able to hear their stories today and what really makes them most excited about doing things like this. But for me, that's absolutely a part of it. As someone who, my father taught me how to drive on a 4-speed BMW Bavaria and was genuinely unhappy when I could not execute a reverse J-turn at 16. And I told him, Dad, if you just would get out of the car and let me get some of my friends, I can probably do it. But that's our introduction, I think, on why drive electric. With that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Ainsley.
Yeah, awesome. So from now, we're going to move forward to, and it's not showing right here, but we're going to show a little bit of the video that was created by Jim Crawford at the National Drive Electric Week event in Knoxville, Tennessee this last year. Each of our speakers today was featured in this video, and that's why we invited them to come speak and elaborate a little bit more on their personal experiences. Before we start the video, I just want to ask everyone if you have any questions, whether they're specific to one of our speakers or whether they're just general. Feel free to put them in the chat. We do have someone moderating the chat, and we'll be making sure those questions get asked before we finish today, as well as you're welcome to hold on to your questions, and we will have a specific question and answer time at the end as well. And with that said, this is about 5 or 6 minutes or so. And so if it's not working, let me know in the chat, but we're going to get started watching the video.
Hi, my name is Michael Brown. I'm sitting inside a 2020 Nissan Leaf SL Plus. This vehicle has the 62 kilowatt hour battery and the built-in CHAdeMO quick charge system. The Nissan electric vehicle has very minimal cost for maintenance. About the only thing you're going to spend money on is tires and windshield washer fluid. The amount that costs to charge the vehicle is actually very low. To get a full charge for the vehicle from depleted all the way up to full battery costs about $6 in electricity. The Nissan Leaf is very easy to charge at home. I've actually got an L2 station installed at my house. And at least in Tennessee, there are a lot of CHAdeMO charging stations around. As a matter of fact, the area that I'm in right now, I believe, has 3 of them nearby. And I'll be using one of those when I return home from here. My trip will be over 200 miles. I've taken this vehicle and done some slight modifications to it. I've got it set up so I can hook a 1,000 watt inverter into it as a backup power source for my home, or just in this case, I've actually got a microwave and refrigerator hooked into it as kind of a power demo. The electric car actually makes a very good mobile power station.
I'm Phil. I just purchased a 2021 Model Y in June. The first few trips we took, we had a little range anxiety, but that pretty much dissipated. We have plenty of superchargers around for what we need to use. Some of the things that I like about electric vehicles, specifically the Model Y, are the one pedal driving, where you can never use the brakes. You push on the accelerator, and then when you want to slow down, you can modulate the reduction of that. You can either take it off fast and stop fast, and all this stopping will it's regenerative, so you're putting electricity back in the battery, and so you really never touch your brakes. My daughter's friends to a football game, and it was the first time they were in an electric vehicle, and their first comments were, "Wow, it's so quiet, it's so smooth." And I'm not sure if that's the suspension or the fact that it's got no gears to go through. So it's really a fun car to drive. It's got more power than any of the cars I've ever owned. So my experience has been really good. I haven't had any mechanical issues. And so I just enjoy driving by those signs that say $3 a gallon. The way that I typically charge, I have a wall adapter in my garage. It's a 240 volt wall adapter, and I can pretty much charge up in 3 to 4 hours. I've used the superchargers a few times. You just back into one, you pull out the cord, push the button, it opens your cover to the charger, and you plug it in and it starts. There's no credit card, there's nothing to have to manipulate on the charger. There's actually no interface on the charger. And when you do have to supercharge, it's usually 15, 25 minutes at the most, something like that in my experience.
Hi, my name is Brandon and I'm sitting in my 2020 Kia Niro EV. Great car. I have 2 small kids, both in car seats. They fit in the back perfectly. Still have plenty of room for all the storage that all kids have to have, right? Car seats, strollers, all the necessities. Plenty of room for me too. I'm 6'1". I'm a big dude. Still got tons of space. I work from home. However, I do work for a health company and I have to go to a lot of different hospitals around the area. So charging is important to me. But with this car, I can plug it in at my house every night and get 100% of battery overnight. So I can go from 0, go all the way up to 100, and then have 280 miles of range to go wherever I need to. So far, I love this car. I've had it for 2 months. Great investment, would not change a thing. So once again, it's a Kia Niro EV. They have the 2022 models out now. Check it out.
Hi, I'm Dave Graham. I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, up here, sharing the experience that I've had with this Volkswagen ID.4 I've owned now for about 4 months. Like the feel of it. It feels nice inside. The features of it, the way it handles, I feel like I'm safe. A lot of features like this open panoramic roof. That's all I can see, everything, the sky, clouds out there. The functions of the infotainment center in terms of navigation, the sound system for Sirius, radio, the heating, air conditioning system, everything works pretty well. It's a little bit slow at times. So far I took the car on one trip to Charleston, South Carolina, which was I think about 400 miles from Chattanooga, and I was able to utilize the charging system, Electrify America. This car came with essentially 3 years of free charging at Electrify America charging stations, which are situated at key areas along interstates where you can charge your vehicle up in about 30 minutes from a low charge to a full charge. And it got me from Chattanooga into Atlanta to Augusta, Georgia, Charleston, Savannah, Georgia, and then back up through Atlanta on a round-trip loop. And it was a very enjoyable experience. There were a couple of times where I got a little low on range, but other than that, I never lost total power. I try not to charge it constantly at Electrify America. It's DC fast charging, but for most of my charging, if I'm just doing everyday driving around Chattanooga, I charge in my garage. I purchased a 240 volt charger that's 32 kilowatt hours and put a 40 amp breaker in my electric box and hired an installer. The charger cost about $250. The installation was about $250, so it was about $500. and I charge the car maybe every couple of weeks. I figure my power bill probably is anywhere from $10 to $15 a month. So I try to do most of my charging at home. I drove the car up here, was able to charge at Electrify America free a few miles from here off of Walker Springs Road. And then I will go home. I can charge up at another Electrify America north of Chattanooga, and then get home 12 miles later, and I'll pretty much have a full charge for the next couple of weeks.
All right, so that is the video we wanted to share with you all today. Moving forward, we're going to let each of our speakers that we listened to during the video have a chance to kind of talk about, either expand upon what they talked about in the video, talk about a couple other things, and talk about their experiences with the video. So, and it looks like it started me at the beginning, so hold on. Sorry about that. And Michael, you have the floor.
Excellent. Excellent video too, by the way. I really enjoy it. Hi, my name is Michael Brown, and ever since 2013, I've been driving a Nissan Leaf. Now, in 2013, I started with that year model. So about 8 years later and 75,000 miles later, I traded in last year for my 2020 Nissan Leaf. And that was back in March of 2021. Since then, I've driven over 35,000 miles, averaging about 3,000 miles a month. And with my current utility rate, I'm only spending about $60 in electricity per month for that 3,000 miles, which works out to about 2 cents per mile. In the wintertime, I'm running the heater, so I use a little bit more power, a little bit more charging. So I'm averaging around $71 a month for that 3,000 miles average, sometimes a little higher, sometimes a little lower. And that still works out to roughly 2.5 cents per mile. Originally, when we got our first EV, me and my wife, back in 2013, it was kind of a curiosity to see if we could have it fill in some roles for us. And at first it was just take some trips to the stores and pick up the kids. But since then it's migrated into becoming the full-time family car. And the video, it talks about using the car as kind of a backup power supply. That's kind of an aftermarket modification that I made to it. In the event of a power outage, I could use the car to power the house, 120 volt outlet style. And it makes a good backup power source for that, kind of driving it around, I guess. I've also got a towing attachments to it. I did have a truck that I would use for hauling around various things. And using the trailer with the EV was a lot more cost efficient and actually easier since it was lower to the ground for loading. Originally, it started out as a curiosity, but the EV is really just taken off into a full-time car that just does everything for this household.
Michael, did you want to talk a little bit about some of the slides?
Oh, good. You got the slide up there. Sorry, the screen's over here and the camera's over here. It looks like I'm looking that way.
It's all good.
Yeah, so that slide right there, yeah, the recent power outage, that's an interesting one. So this week, the utility company was changing out the poles because they're so old, they're starting to rot. And in the picture, you can see they had to take this entire pole out, put a brand new one in, and move all the wiring to it. While they were doing that, they had to disconnect all the houses around in this area to perform this function. And during that time, as you can see in the picture, I'm actually using the Leaf to power our house during that outage, which according to them was only supposed to last an hour, but it actually ended up lasting all day because that is a lot of work for them to do and to do it safely. So yeah, that's cool. So go to the next slide there. I realize I may have skipped ahead by saying all this because I couldn't see what the slide was. Yeah, so that right there is a recent towing trip. I needed to get a pressure washer and a large trash pump. And as you can see, I've got a trailer attachment for the Leaf. And it actually does really help for some of the job sites I go to just because the cost, it's a lot less to tow this equipment around versus when I did it in my truck or if I loaded it on my truck. Nothing against my truck, I love the truck, but this just makes it easier and cheaper. So what was the last slide? Oh yeah, the EV event. So last year when I went to the Drive Electric event, I brought a refrigerator and a microwave and set up and gave away free drinks and meals to people. But the purpose of that was to show that in a power outage situation, you could use your EV as a mobile power source. And so I thought that would be a good demonstration of it. So I think people really enjoyed that display as well.
All right. Thanks, Michael, for sharing with us. And next up, we have
Thank you.
Philip.
Well, good afternoon. Yeah, I'm Philip Montgomery, and I do have a 2021 Tesla Model Y. And I've installed a wall charger, as you can see in the photo here in my garage. And that's where I mostly charge it. I have used the superchargers somewhat. And since we picked it up, and the right-hand slide shows the day we picked it up from Brentwood out in West, I guess, Middle Tennessee, and drove it back to Knoxville. And kind of interesting, when I first got it, I was just really amazed about the torque, as Jonathan was talking about earlier. And so when I take out each of my family members and let them experience, a quick start. And I've got 3 children, 2 20-year-olds and 1 16-year-old. And the 20-year-old daughter screamed and said, "Don't ever do that again." My younger daughter said, "Wow, let's do it again." And my son said, "That was okay." And then my wife, when I took her out, it was the same as my older daughter. She screamed, and I'm not to do that again with her in the car. So what a wide range of experience. I enjoy it, but I don't take off like that anymore. I basically keep it within a kind of a chill range. But it's really interesting owning one of these. And it is taking off quite a bit at work. I work in Oak Ridge. And just to give you an example, within just the group of my coworkers, one of them's ordered a Rivian and already owns a Mach-E. Another one owns or has ordered a Cybertruck. And another one owns an ID.4, and she loves it. She had it, she was tracking it on the boat on the way over here, and they kind of gave her updates all the way. And I think it's a great car too. I love the turning radius on it. It's got a really short turning radius, kind of like my previous car was a Subaru Forester. You could turn around in a parking spot, in a single spot, it seemed like. But in my Model Y, it's got a wide wheelbase, and it's got quite the large turning radius. Another one of my coworkers had a Ford F-150 Lightning ordered, and it got canceled by Ford, and they told him he had to reorder. And so he's been having issues with that, and they want him to reorder at a higher price. Another one of my co-workers owns a Model 3 and a Model Y. And another engineering co-worker of mine owns a Model 3. So about half of this has happened within the last year. And several of those have owned some electric vehicles, for years, but the majority of the growth has happened just in the last year. So, like I said in the video, the charging was kind of my, and range anxiety was one of my kind of the worrisome items. And if I could share my screen with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I stopped sharing mine. So if you want to share yours now, Phil.
Okay. Can you see this? The picture of the supercharging?
It has not popped up. Did you hit the share screen in the Zoom?
Should be at the bottom.
Okay, let's see here. Yeah, I did hit share screen. Oh, here we go. Share.
There we go. Now we can see a nebula.
All right. So are you seeing that this is an image,
Yes, we are seeing the image.
yeah, of the panel in my Tesla. So when you pull into a Tesla 250 kW charger and you've got relatively low charge on your battery, this is what you can expect to see, at least at the beginning. This is showing 247 kilowatts charging at a rate of about 1,029 miles an hour, and full, charge to my limit is 25 minutes here. So that is what you initially start with. This does have a taper. It slows down as you get closer to your charge. And then on the other end, well, one end of the spectrum here is the screen grab I took from my app. This is the Tesla app. And what this is showing is it's charged to my garage charger. And it's 240 volt charger. It's charging at 48 amps. I have a 60 amp breaker that feeds this charger, and the way it's set up is they won't let you use more than, for continuous current, 80% of what the breaker is, and that's 48 amps. And I'm getting 46 miles per hour on this. And so this is typical, and this is constant till this does not have a taper. And this is what I see in my garage here. And so what it'll take 3 to 4.5 hours to typically to charge, from a low charge on my battery. Now the other options are out there. You could put in a 50 amp receptacle or other, receptacles and charge with other adapters at slower rates. They'll just take longer. But this was the maximum that was available for the Model Y at home, at least the maximum that I was willing to pay for. So that maybe will give you an idea of what you can expect, on charging. So with that, I'll stop sharing. Ansley, take it back.
Thank you, Phil.
Over. And let's see, is there anything else I wanted to talk about here? Just the Tesla seems to update their vehicles continuously. When the Model Y came out, it was coming out with a 75 kW battery. And then by the time I ordered mine and they manufactured mine, they were putting an 82 kilowatt hour battery in it. And so I've had fun driving. You can drive to Atlanta without any problem, without needing to charge. I've gone hiking in the Smokies, going to Asheville, other areas in North Carolina. And one of the interesting things is that with regenerative braking, if you go to a high altitude location, for instance, example that I have is I went to Clingman's Dome, from my home in Knoxville to Clingman's Dome. And then when I came back, I actually had more charge than I left with. So it was really phenomenal because all the way downhill, it was charging the battery. So thoroughly enjoyed mine, and I'm just happy that people are moving toward electric vehicles. It's great that there are a lot of options out there. I'm totally thrilled that the other manufacturers are coming on board with their models, and looking forward to seeing ICEs disappear. So that's all I had, Ansley.
Thank you so much, Philip. Next up, we have Brandon Hood.
Hello and good afternoon to my East Tennesseans, and for my Middle and West Tennesseans, good morning still. My name is Brandon Hood. I am, for just a few more days, the owner of a 2020 Kia Niro EV as well as a 2022 Kia Niro EV. So now you know why I'm getting rid of the other one. They're exactly the identical car, literally same color and everything. The 2022, the only difference is they've changed the center display, and they've added just a little bit of quality of life things. No major changes though. And the reason I did that is because right now Kia is running a lease offer where you can lease a 2022 Kia Niro EV, and this is their base model. Which, keep in mind, the base model, even though it is the base, it still has GPS, Apple CarPlay, heated seats. You got a wireless charger in it, so it's very loaded. The interior is like a cloth leather mixture. So even though it is a base vehicle, still plenty of nice quality and comfort features for $239 a month with $3,500 down. My original lease on this Niro that you guys are looking at here was only $352 a month, and that was a zero down. So a little bit of a contrast from some of the other vehicles we have here. The Niro is incredibly affordable to lease, and the reason for that, which I believe Volkswagen does this as well, and I believe Kia does it, or not sorry, Kia, but Hyundai. That tax credit that people hear talking about all the time for EVs, the $7,500 for Kia, Volkswagen, and Hyundai, I believe. I don't think there's any others. They actually give you that $7,500 as a rebate towards leasing. So it's basically like you walked into the dealership with $7,500 in cash instead of having to wait for your tax season to come up and get that $7,500. Or if you don't qualify for the $7,500 for whatever reason, because it isn't refundable, keep that in mind. It is just a credit, so you don't get anything extra back with it. You get that as a rebate anyway. So even if you don't qualify, it's a great way to still get that $7,500 because it's coming to you as a rebate. As that video said, I do have two kids. I have a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. The 1-year-old, you saw that little baby car seat. She is now in a rear-facing car seat that is ginormous, and she sits behind me. Once again, I'm 6'1", and I'm a big dude. So she sits behind me, and we still have plenty of room. Car seats were very important to us when we were looking at getting a vehicle. We tried out the ID.4. We tried out the Model Y. And while they were great cars, we did struggle a little bit with some of the car seats, specifically my daughter's rear-facing one. We were lucky to have some generous folks in this community allow us to borrow their Model Y and their ID.4s to test that out. But right now, we just love this car. That's why I went ahead and got another one. Lowered my payment, got a brand new car with a couple more features with no miles. I charge at home. That's pretty much exclusively where I've charged. I only fast charged at one of the Electrify America stations, I believe 3 times now. We used the one in Sevierville's exit right there at the Harley Davidson dealership when we were down there for a weekend. And then I actually went to exit 7 in Virginia, in Bristol, and they had a station there at the Sam's Club that I went and just kind of tried it out one day just to see what it was like. The cool thing about Electrify America stations is that on holiday weekends, they often do free charging. So that's actually when I went up there to test it, was I believe Memorial Day weekend.
just saying, hey, I'm low on battery. Let's just see what happens here. Went from about 20% to 70% in about 15 minutes. So just kind of went in, I got some pizza at Sam's, and then came back out. If that would have been something that I would have actually paid for, it would have cost me maybe $5. So it's great to charge. Right now, like I said, I do charge at home. I plug it in with a 240 outlet that I conveniently already had in my basement when I bought the car, because our previous owners used to have their washer and dryer downstairs. So I already had an outlet. I just had to get the charger, the level 2 charger I got off of Amazon. I got it for about $125, I believe, because the one I got can only do 10 kilowatts. The reason that I did that is because when you're charging on a level 2 station with the Niros, they only charge at 7.2 max. So I didn't have to do anything crazy. And while mine doesn't charge as fast as some others, I can charge overnight from as low as 0% and go all the way up to 100 if I need to overnight, usually about 9-10 hours. My electric costs have went up maybe $20-30 at most. The Niros are rated at 239 miles EPA, which this time of year I would say is fairly accurate. That is one thing with electric vehicles, is your mileage will change based on the temperature outside, and electric vehicles do like it warm. So in the summer, you heard on the video, I was getting probably 280, 290. This time of year, I'm getting 240, 250, because the heater will bring you down. I'm also driving more on the interstate than I'm normally used to, which will also bring you down a little bit more than just say driving around town. The other cool thing about the Niro is that even though it's not got the crazy power that say a Tesla or a Rivian or a Mach-E would have, you still got a lot more power than the gas version of the car, which they do make a gas version and a hybrid version of the Niro. The electric version, you're looking at 201 horsepower, and the incredible thing is almost 300 foot-pounds of torque. So it'll still get up and go and take you from point A to point B as fast as you really want to. Like I said, the other thing regarding charging is that I've never had any range anxiety. That's one thing that people get really concerned about, is the range anxiety. I've went pretty good distances and there's always been chargers around. Make sure though you are utilizing some sort of program, whether it is, I know Teslas have it built in that'll tell you your nearest superchargers on your maps and your GPS. There's a great tool called it is a Better Route Planner, sorry. And it will actually, if you have a long distance trip that you're planning on going, you can type in your car, type in your route or your destination, and it will plan out your route and your charging stops as you're going. It's a great tool to use. I highly recommend that one. Of course, Electrify America has their app that'll point you to all their stations. I noticed on my new 2022 Kia, the GPS actually has kind of the same similar situation that Tesla does, where it's got those built-in charger locations already in there for you. I love my car, got plenty of room for me and the kids. It's perfect for our family. And what I'm paying for to lease it is what I would be paying in gas cost alone if I had an ICE car. So definitely something to look at if you are looking more on the monetary side or even the kids side of things. And appreciate you letting me talk. I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end of this, and go electric vehicles.
Thank you, Brandon. And last but not least, we have David Graham.
All right, thank you, and good afternoon to everybody. My name is Dave Graham, and I own Volkswagen ID.4. I've had it now for about 9 months. It's got a 250-mile range on it. I charge mostly at home overnight. I've got a 240-volt charger, 32 amp on a 40 amp breaker. I think it's about 30 miles an hour. And I normally charge from like 9 p.m. until like 5 a.m. in the morning, or maybe a little bit longer. I'm averaging about, I've done a cost analysis. I'm actually getting, I'm charging 3 times every 2 months since I've had it. So that comes out to about about $15 a month in my power bill. But I also want to state that I live in Georgia, so I'm cheating, but I'm 50 yards from the Tennessee line, and I get my power from Chattanooga Electric Power Board, EPB. And they have a program that is not well advertised, but it's called Take Charge. And I learned about it at a EV rally up in Townsend several months ago from a guy who has a motorcycle down here in Chattanooga. And I said, well, they only offer that for industrial users. He said, no, I think you can do it as a residential. And I signed up for it. And just to give you an idea, it uses time of use power billing. So you pay less for power in off-peak times than you do when it's either, and it changes from summer to winter seasons. In the summer, you're running your air conditioning at certain times of the day. In the winter, you're running your heat during certain times of the day, and you're cooking and things like that. So I try to wash my dishes, do my washing, you know, but most definitely my charging of the car off peak. And my last power, well, not my last power bill, but the power bill from December, just to give you an idea, I live in a 1,400 square foot townhome. My power bill was $79. And about, let's see, about 20 of that was actually price adjustments for TVA, sales tax, and something else. But my the way my power worked off peak, I was paying 7 cents a kilowatt hour. I paid $37.73 that month, and on peak during high usage hours, I was paying 16 cents a kilowatt hour, and I paid $11. So that gives you an idea how you can be creative at using your home power consumption and billing for what's called time of use power billing. One of the things with Volkswagen, and I looked at the Tesla Model Y, it was hard to find one in Chattanooga, so I couldn't test drive one, but they no longer had the $7,500 rebate incentive. So that was $7,500 right there. You had to buy the Y with a little bit more range than 250, and it was a premium that I just didn't feel I needed to take. So that was kind of the deal breaker for me to choose the ID.4 over the Model Y, which has a similar, I think, cargo capacity structure is really an SUV, as you can see with that car on the screen there, which is the Volkswagen. The Electrify America was actually founded by Volkswagen as part of the infamous diesel scandal, but it is separate from Volkswagen. But one of the features of VW ID.4 is you get Electrify America free for 3 years. And so that's off of major interstates, the interstate highway system. I mentioned my trip down to Charleston, which went very well. When you're in Charleston, you don't drive a car, you walk, because I was downtown. But getting down to Savannah, and then I went up to one of my old workplaces, Georgia Southern University in Statesboro, and I was getting low on range. I didn't think I could make it. But fortunately, Georgia Power had a high-speed charger there, agreement through probably Georgia Drive Electric and the State Department of Economics. I don't know. Similar to what TVA is now doing with Tennessee Drive Electric and some other state agencies to place additional high-speed chargers that'll complement Electrify America. Now I have to pay for those, and I paid, but it was only about $7 to charge up in Statesboro to get me up to north of Macon where I could get home. So that was my one little range anxiety on that trip there. Let's see what else here. Okay, so I have only other out-of-town trips I've made. I've made one to Knoxville, that one right there in the picture, one to Townsend up near Knoxville, the Smoky Mountains. I go to Nashville kind of regularly because I've got my older daughter and my one and only granddaughter who will be 3 in June up there. So I am obviously incentivized to make trips to Nashville. And there's fortunately an Electrify America charger near Grassmere, the zoo, and it's only about 8 miles from where they live. And so I can get up there, do all the driving I need to, charge up before I leave, and I can get home on that charger back into Chattanooga. A couple of comments I want to make about my experience with the Volkswagen is when I got it, it does come with heated seats, heated steering wheel. I thought, well, that sounds cool, but am I ever going to use that? Also, driver assist. And driver assist has blown me away. I never thought I'd use that. But on my trip to Charleston and up to Nashville, Knoxville, those places, you just put this thing on. And I mean, it's not the high-powered one or the one that has a lot of features that Tesla has, but it basically, you put it on cruise control and you keep your hands on the wheel and it will steer, and you can move lanes. You can, if you come up on a car, it gradually slows down. You don't have to worry about hitting the brake coming off of cruise control. It's just an incredible feature. I would never live without it right now. The heated seats and the steering wheel, that comes in really advantageous, because one of the problems with the current Volkswagen ID.4, and I'm pretty sure they're going to fix this, heating, if I run the heater in that car, it drops my energy capacity 35%. I've learned that this winter because I go to the gym every morning and it's freezing cold outside. I keep the car in the garage, and that's where I charge it on my 240 volt, like every, 3 times every couple of months. But when I get in the car, it's not that cold. I turn on the heated seat and the steering wheel, and I think that must run off the 12-volt battery, because it does not impact my energy capacity that's currently on the battery to run in the car. I have to run the heat when I have to turn on the defrosters to clear the front windshield occasionally, and I can see it drops 35% of what's available. So that's my big thing with it. But interestingly enough, I've gotten used to it. I'm pretty sure they've got a heat pump technology out there now that I think Tesla's already using, and you have to pay extra for, but I think that's going to address the problem. And so I wouldn't be surprised if not everybody's using that new technology in the next couple of years. So that's about it from my experience with the Volkswagen ID.4. They're going to be building them here in Chattanooga, supposed to be this spring. However, there's all sorts of issues with manufacturing right now. I think that's still going to happen. I know they're building the cars right now, but not for sale to the public. I think they're just getting their, full production up running solid so that they can actually begin cranking them out and, moving them over to consumers. When that's going to occur, I don't know. But as I was mentioning to Jonathan earlier, I just don't see many of them driving around right now in Chattanooga. I've seen a couple, or if I go over to Volkswagen dealership, there's 1 or 2 up there. But that's been my experience so far. I love the car. I had a Nissan Leaf a decade ago, and it was a different generation, and it did not go 250 miles. So I never ventured out of Chattanooga on it. But it was a great car too, like this one. But this is definitely a different and a much later, more efficient generation with a lot of features. I love it. So I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has, and that's my 2 bits. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. And I want to thank all of our speakers again, just for coming on and giving us some of their time today to talk about their vehicles and their love of EVs and all that. We're really, really thankful to have great, EV enthusiasts that are willing to come teach people that may not know a whole lot about EVs. And also, before we move on, I want to thank once again Jim Crawford for producing the video at the Drive Electric Festival 2021. This process would not have happened without that video as well. So we're really thankful for his help there. We're going to skip the questions from Drive Electric Tennessee, just because we're running a little low on time. So I want to open up some questions from the chat first. Maddie, who's been moderating our chat, what kind of questions are we looking at in the chat for our panelists?
Yeah, so we have 4 or 5 questions that was asked in the chat, and just in case everyone didn't get to read the chat, Jonathan asks, is the onboard DC fast charging limited to 100 kilowatts?
And I believe that question was directed specifically at Michael Brown.
We may have put you on mute, Michael.
Michael Brown, are you still with us?
No, he was on mute. Now he was off mute and he's muted again. We need to get him unmuted.
Well, while we wait for that, Maddie, why don't we go ahead and ask another question?
I think he got it. Hold on one second, Ainsley. You there, Michael?
Yeah, if something popped up, it said I could unmute myself. That's good.
All right. So is the question was, is the onboard charger, even though most of the CHAdeMO chargers that are out there these days are limited to 50 to 60 kilowatts, is the onboard charging system in the newer Leaf going to a higher rating? Like if you can find it, can you go to 100 kilowatts? That's what my question was.
Yeah, the charging system will do 100 kilowatts, but as you mentioned, you got to find a station that'll support that higher power.
Yes, and so for folks that didn't see it in the chat, there's going to be a whole new round of DC fast chargers coming across the state in 2022 and 2023. So we will try to do a little homework and see if some of those that are CHAdeMO for the Leaf owners are going to be 50 kilowatts or greater. So we'll try to know that for future reference.
All right, next question.
So this question was from Pinjin. What would you like us to do to help your family members achieve a better EV experience?
Yes, and that's also super important.
And I think this was directed towards the general panel.
You're ready before they're ready. Hi, Ainsley. I think I asked questions to Phil. Phil already addressed that.
Oh, okay. All right, Maddie, we can move on then. It sounds like Phil already addressed that question.
Okay. The next question that was asked in the chat was, is there tax credits for used EV purchases in Tennessee yet?
Would any of our panelists like to answer that question?
This is Dave. There used to be a $2,500 tax credit when I bought my first Leaf back in 2011. That went away. They used up the number of that. In Tennessee, for whatever reason, I'm sure somebody said it's political, and it definitely is. I think a lot of the states are grappling right now with how they're gonna retain their funds that come out of gas tax. In Georgia, I pay $130 a year to renew my tags. I think it's less than that in Tennessee. And I know I'm not paying the equivalent of $132 in gas. I don't drive that much in Georgia since I live so close to Chattanooga, and I'm in Chattanooga most of the time. But that $2,500, it's gone, and I don't know of any states that are doing that. There probably are, but they're probably more progressive EV states that are doing that, like out on the West Coast, Arizona, California. I'm not sure, but I know Tennessee doesn't offer it anymore. Georgia doesn't. Georgia had a $5,000 one, and that went away too.
Yeah, it is, as someone noted in the chat, it's $100. Is basically the electric vehicle fee that's supposed to supplant the gas tax you paid, and it's one of the lowest that's out there. I have a feeling that is going to go up. From recent discussions, I've heard that even if you just look at the state tax portion of what we pay to go fill up a gasoline vehicle, that's not really accurate because some of the federal money comes back to the state. So you actually have to go beyond a little bit of the 21 or whatever the tax portion that's gasoline tax. So I think it obviously depends on how much you drive. And for somebody that drives 4,000 miles a year and somebody that drives 15,000 miles a year and both of them paying $100, $150, $200, whatever the number is, it's a little unfair, but it's just almost impossible to connect it to the amount of fuel kilowatt hours that you use. So it's a reasonable supplant. It just tends to, the people that use cars more are going to get closer to value out of that. People that use an EV less are going to be paying a little bit more than they would in gas tax probably.
And to answer the question about the tax credit for used EVs, just in case anybody missed it, no, there is currently not a tax credit or rebate on used electric vehicles. Maddie, would you like to ask the next question?
Yes, so someone asks, where does Tennessee rank nationally for EVs and infrastructure manufacturing?
That's a great question. Do any of our panelists know the answer to that one?
there's not very many EVSE manufactured in Tennessee. Most of them are California and even other countries. So just in terms of, you know, DC fast charger level 2 manufacturing, I'm not really sure there's much of any in Tennessee, although Tritium did announce recently that in Lebanon, they will be taking over a facility and producing a couple different kinds of DC fast chargers there.
So I can't necessarily answer how we rank compared to everywhere else in the US, but I do know also outside of just the EVSE, which, by the way, for anyone wondering, that's talking about the charging equipment, the charging stations that shorten, people call that EVSE. As far as production of EVs and like just general electric vehicles, I know we're doing particularly well, and we're known as for being one of the I guess if you're going to rank them, one of the higher up states as far as where electric vehicles are currently and are going to be produced. Maddie, is there another question?
So this one was just asked in the chat for those who didn't see it, and maybe a panelist would like to elaborate. Who is in charge of building most of the electric charging stations across Tennessee?
I will take that one. It's been, you know, EVgo has been one of those that looks for sites for DC fast chargers and tries to put those in. ChargePoint has done some of the same thing, but oftentimes they're working with an individual partner that wants to put a DC fast charger somewhere. So it's not like everything that's been installed has been kind of from a grand scheme perspective and trying to develop those locations. But that really changed last year with TDEC having the VW funding that I think was a little over $5 million, and then TVA adding about $7 million to that to work with LPCs and try to really look at a map of Tennessee and figure out for corridor charging, for primary, and then also for some secondary routes, where do we need to add charging so that from a perspective of being a Tennessean, whether you live in Memphis or Mountain City and you want to go somewhere else in the state, trying to have DC fast charging stations every 50 miles or less. So what previously might have been a little more, we're just going to put them in places where whoever the group that is interested in that wants to put it, to making more of a statewide plan, there's been a transition. But with the new work that's going on, TVA and TDEC are probably the ones that with the planning they've done are helping trying to figure out how they place these more strategically. Now that's talking, if you look at Tesla, that's different. Tesla does all this on their own and they pick where those locations are. And then for non-Tesla, Electrify America is doing kind of the same thing. And they pick locations based on relationships they have, but also trying to fill gaps. Were you going to add something to that, Dave?
I was going to say, and Mike, I took a trip up to Blue Ridge, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and I wanted to go up to the Cherahala and do this. I guess it was in the fall. I want to see the colors up there because I always do that. It's really pretty. But there's no chargers. And I thought, well, 250 miles, it was going up that mountain and down. I thought, I'm not sure. That's too close for me. So instead, I did another trip and went up to Blue Ridge, through Illijay, through Georgia. And there's a charger, the same kind of charger in Illijay that was the Georgia Power relationship that they had with, I don't know, the Georgia Department of Economic Development or whatever. And it's similar to what TVA is doing throughout the valley, but TVA is in Tennessee, but it's also in parts of 6 other states. So TVA is developing these relationships with these other 6 states to roll out these high-speed chargers. And what's different from Electrify America is they're not on interstates. They just opened one in Fort Payne, is the first one I heard. And I'm going to make a trip down there because that's an hour from me. I've never been to Fort Payne, the sock capital of the world. So I've always wondered about that. So I'm going to, see how that works. I do know that the Georgia Power ChargePoint relationship in Statesboro was a lot less. It was cost less than the Electrify America. I'm not paying for Electrify America, but I can see what the equivalent is. So that's just a comment that it's not just TVA. It's not just in Tennessee. They're in parts of 6 other states.
Thank you so much, everybody, for attending, and for once again, all our panelists for contributing. Thank you, Jonathan, for answering some of our questions. We are really thankful to everyone who has attended today. Before everybody leaves, just want to remind you that we do have another webinar in this series coming up on March 3rd. This one is going to be really exciting. It's going to be about testing electric vehicle range across the state. We have some really awesome volunteers who have taken really long trips to really push the range of their vehicles. And so we're really looking forward to that. You can find the registration information for this webinar on our website. And then here, speaking of our website, here is the web address to visit, as well as some other information about where else you can find us, joining us. Jonathan's contact information is down below, as well as you can find the contact information for me and the rest of the team on either the Tennessee Clean Fuels website or the Drive Electric Tennessee website. We hope after this webinar, you feel like EVs definitely are practical for Tennesseans and that you've learned a little bit and will consider an EV for yourself one day. Thank you everyone for attending and have a great rest of your day.
And one quick final comment before she hangs up. Chris Lee asked a question about growth of EVs in Tennessee. There should be an article on the Drive Electric Tennessee website, I think under news, that talks about that growth, Chris. So there should be something there. Plus, in the next few months, we hope to add a section that kind of gives you numbers year over year of where we stand with both plug-in hybrid and dedicated electric vehicles. So look for more information on the website for that.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. It was a pleasure. Thank you.